and gentlemen at Camcast, I'm sorry it's taken me a little bit. As you can see, we're in a new location. I actually moved last weekend. I actually got another new job. So for those of you at home, that's two new jobs in the last 2 months. That's just apparently, I'm not only good talking here on the podcast, but in general, and I'm able to get all these different jobs. So that's a new thing. But no, I haven't forgotten. I know we did that poll on Camcast Instagram. That is at cam.cast, kam.cast, where you guys voted upon. You wanted to hear my top 10 comedies of all time. I'm gonna do that list. I had that list ready. The list is here. It's ready, and we're gonna put this on YouTube. It's gonna go on everywhere you can listen to a podcast, and it's gonna go on an IG story on IGTV. So that way you'll be able to watch the entirety of it on my Instagram. So please make sure you're following my Instagram. You're hitting that bell notification so you know when I'm having a new post. If you're following on YouTube already and you're watching it here, make sure you're sharing and you're liking and subscribing and you're commenting. It really helps me against the YouTube algorithm. And without further ado, we'll get into this. Oh, let me go ahead and preface. This is my top 10 list. Okay, these might not be the funniest movies of all time, but these are movies I broke down. There might be a few that I have forgotten over the years, but these are ones that I've broken down, and I've watched them either a million times or they're really, really quotable for me, and they're ones that just leave a really positive taste in my mouth. So without further ado, here's a list. But we are going to start out with some honorable mentions because there are a lot of honorable mentions to talk about. So first honorable mention is the Rush Hour series. Those are great. Chris Tucker, Jackie Chan. They're super quotable. They're pretty funny, and I've always enjoyed them. The next one is a couple of Adam Sandler movies, my two favorite Adam Sandler movies, which are Billy Madison, Mr. Deeds, and Happy Gilmore, so three. All three of those are just hilarious. Mr. Deeds, I watched it again recently, I think late last year, and I forgot how funny it was and like how how much I was laughing at that movie. Obviously, Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore are just classic films, right? Those are just incredibly funny. The next one, probably my earliest memory in watching a comedy. We used to watch it all the time as kids with my stepdad, and that is I believe it came out in '94, Dumb and Dumber, with Jim Carrey and God, what's his name? Can't think of his name. Anyways, that movie is great. It's really funny, super quotable. Next one is Game Night, a movie that came out I think 2017 or 18. A movie I didn't anticipate being that funny, and that movie wound up knocking my socks off, and it was freaking hilarious. I really, really enjoyed it. I just haven't found myself going back to watch it a second or third time. But my initial experience in the movie theater was super positive, and I had to put that in my honorable mentions. The next one has got to be an all-timer. Okay, it's got to be on everyone's list in some capacity or another. Napoleon Dynamite. That's one of the driest, most quotable movies ever, and it's so stupid. And it's kind of in that vein of Nacho Libre, which isn't in my honorable mentions, but just dry humor. And they kind of came out along the same time. And it's just one of those things where everyone has seen Napoleon Dynamite in some capacity. Some people were like, "Oh my god, it's genius. It's so funny." And then other people are like, this is just not my thing. But I quote that movie all the time, $6. It's like $1 an hour, like little lines like that. It's fantastic. Then my last honorable mention, I got to include it because I think it's hilarious. I think it's one of the most underrated comedies probably ever, and that's Mean Girls. Mean Girls is fucking funny. I mean, that movie is like, it's got so much great humor. It has like the narration going on by Lindsay Lohan. It's got great Rachel McAdams, good Tina Fey, good Tim Meadows, and it's got that whole scene where she doesn't even go here. Do you even go to this school? No, I just have a lot of feelings. That's just good stuff. But all right, here's the official list. All right, we're doing this. I'm in this, and I'm excited to get rolling. Number 10 came out in 2007. One of my favorite films. I'm gonna get into one thing. One thing about my list that I realized, there was a big boom in comedies between 2007 and 2009. Tons of amazing, like hilarious, iconic rated R comedies came out during that time. That was kind of during the Judd Apatow, I'm going to control the narrative and basically make a million different comedy movies all at the same time. And all those guys, Jason Segel and Paul Rudd and Hill and James Franco, Seth Rogen, all those guys that were in those different movies. And it was kind of a big boom for movie comedies, and we haven't really gotten that since, or even anything close to it since. Comedies have kind of died. But anyways, that was just something that I thought of when I was going over this list. So number 10, Hot Rod from 2007, starring Andy Samberg and Bill Hader and Isla Fisher and a couple other people. Hot Rod is fucking hilarious, okay? That might be the dumbest movie I've ever watched in my entire life, but from start to finish, I am laughing the entire time. It is incredibly quotable. They have that Two of Heart scene where they're dancing in the parking lot for no reason that I reenact all the time, where he just like, it's just, it's really funny. It's super, corny, super cheesy, but I love every single minute of it, and it's great. Number nine is an all female comedy. It has one of the most outrageous, poop scenes in the history of cinema. It's Bridesmaids. Okay, I rewatched Bridesmaids in I believe March, and I hadn't seen it in a couple of years, and I forgot how damn funny that movie was. Kristen Wiig gives an all-time performance. Melissa McCarthy. This is basically our introduction to Melissa McCarthy as like a household name. She was doing the Mike and Molly thing on CBS for years, but we didn't really recognize who this human being was, and she's amazing. She's absolutely fantastic, and she just lights up the screen. She has that thing where she has all the Labrador Retriever puppies, and she's like, "Yeah, I probably could have handled six," because she takes all of them like from that party or whatever. You get your first dose of Rose Byrne, who's amazing, who winds up going in. That's another one I should have put in there. Neighbors. Yeah, Neighbors is in my honorable mention. That's one. That's an example of me forgetting a really funny movie. Yeah, Neighbors. Neighbors in the honorable mention. But anyways, this is number nine. So Bridesmaids. Number eight is a comedy that again came out in 2007. Bridesmaids is 2011, by the way, the year of my graduation. That's 10 years ago, which is insane. Number eight, directed by Greg Mottola, written by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. Superbad. Okay, movie starring Jonah Hill, Michael Cera, McLovin. It's got young Emma Stone. This movie is raunchy. It's gross. It's got that tampon scene. It's disgusting. It's funny. God, it's funny. The set pieces in this thing are amazing. You got that random guy. He's like, "You're Jimmy's cousin, aren't you? You look like Jimmy's cousin. You look like Jimmy's cousin." And it's that guy. He's like, "Let the tiger out of the cage, man. Let the tiger out of the cage. I'm sorry, Mark. I'm sorry." Just like little characters like that in this movie do amazing. And then Bill Hader and Seth Rogen as cops are fantastic. Bill Hader is just amazing in anything. He's one of my favorite people in Hollywood because I feel like he just genuinely just doesn't want that Hollywood lifestyle, and he just enjoys making movies, making TV shows, and just having a good time and picking great roles. But Superbad is just, it's iconic. I mean, it really is. It's one of those iconic high school comedy movies, and it's laugh out loud funny every time. I'm grateful that it's on Netflix every single day. Number seven, possibly the most quotable movie of all time. Okay, and I had to put it on there because there are some outrageous scenes in this movie, and I can go line for line on some of these scenes, like Sex Panther. It's made of 80% panther, so it's good. And of course, I'm talking about Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy. This movie is just outrageous. It's got great Steve Carell. To me, it's got Will Ferrell at the peak of his powers. He's just really tapping in and going for the role. Because there are a lot of Will Ferrell movies I don't like. Like Get Hard, that was one of the few movies I walked out on. I thought that was a really horrible movie. I also walked out on The Campaign. I think that was him in it. I think it was him and Zach Galifianakis. But no, Anchorman is funny. It's so quotable. And one of my favorite lines, he's like, "Baxter, bark twice if you're in Milwaukee." It's like, why Milwaukee, And he's like, "Go fuck yourself, Sandy." It's just it's line after line after line after line, and it's fantastic. I love it so much. And Brick killed a guy. I saw that. There was a guy on a horse, and I killed a guy with a trident. He's like, "Brick, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. You might want to lay low for a while. You're probably wanted for murder." And it's just stuff like that. I love that movie so much. Number six, maybe one of the best ensemble casts and maybe one of the greatest reveals of who an actor is playing in a movie. And just overall one of the funniest movies you're ever going to see, especially that beginning scene where they're doing movie previews. Tropic Thunder. Okay, Tropic Thunder had me in the very beginning where Robert Downey Jr. was playing an Australian guy, and he was in a trailer for a movie called Satan's Alley, and he's in there with Tobey Maguire, and he takes the rosary beads and he's touching the rosary beads, and he goes, it's that movie just so absurd and so ridiculous. And the guy's name is Al Pacino, and at the end you realize that the main producer of the entire thing is he's some guy has these giant hands, and it's Tom Cruise the entire time. I think what's really underrated about that movie is the fact that it was actually directed by Ben Stiller. And I don't think that people talk about that enough, in all honesty. So, and Tropic Thunder, by the way, came out in 2008. So that's another movie that's along, those lines that came out kind of in a great time for comedies in that 5 year stretch where just comedies were just zinging off. Which kind of makes sense because that was right before the superhero boom, right? Because superhero boom came out in 2008, and this movie Tropic Thunder came out in 2008, and all of a sudden there was a conflict between superhero movies and comedies, because a lot of superhero movies have elements of comedy in them while not being a full comedy genre film, and I think that might have been what happened to a lot of the comedy movies in those times. But we're just gonna go ahead and keep plugging along to possibly the most absurd premise in a movie. But I don't think I've ever laughed harder in a movie theater, because I didn't really go and watch rated R movies until I was about 17. My first rated R film in a theater was The Book of Eli, and I'll never forget it. And for that, because for me, I think I was like 16 or 17. I thought it was really graphic, which is funny because now I'm like eating popcorn through a Tarantino movie and not really thinking twice about it. So, I've kind of grown a long way as a film watcher. But the movie that is my number 5 spot is This Is the End, that came out in 2013. One of the best ensemble casts you're ever going to see. Okay, it basically stars Seth Rogen, James Franco, Jonah Hill, Danny McBride, Jay Baruchel, Craig Robinson. It's got appearances from Paul Rudd, Kevin Hart, Michael Cera, coked out Michael Cera, who, if you've seen the movie, you understand, like, it's a completely different level of Michael Cera. It's a Michael Cera you didn't know that you needed, but you're glad that you got. It's got Emma Watson. It has a guest appearance by Channing Tatum towards the end of the film. And a special, if you haven't seen it by now, spoiler alert, it's got the Backstreet Boys the last 3 minutes of the movie for no reason at all. The movie's absurd. It knows it's absurd. It's dark, it's twisted, it's hilarious, and I had to include it in this list. It is just so ridiculous that they made this movie basically as just like they're each playing themselves, but they're playing like a hyped up Hollywood version of themselves, like how people think that they would actually be. Like Jonah's like America's sweetheart, and Jay Baruchel is really he's a hipster. He hates the Hollywood life. They play up James Franco that he's in love with Seth Rogen, and the movie's fucking funny. And if you haven't seen it, I suggest watching it or rewatching it. It's really funny, and it's not the most quotable movie, but there's a lot of physical humor in that movie, and it just makes me laugh so hard. Um, Number 4 is one of my all-time favorites. It is the broest of bro comedies, and of course, I'm talking about 2009's I Love You Man, starring Paul Rudd and Jason Segel. This movie's phenomenal. Okay, every time I watch it, I have a smile on my face. It's all the nicknames they call each other, like, "Hey, I'll see you later, Jobin," and then Jason Segel's like, "Jobin," or it's just like, "I'll see you later, Magooch," or it's like, "I'll see you later," or "I'll see you another time," and then Jason Segel's like, "Well, that's really confusing. Are we hanging out?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." It's like, "Oh, okay, cool. That sounds good." Movie's really quotable. It's just really funny and it's silly. But it kind of makes it's a great story because the guy can't make friends. So basically, that's you can imagine how somebody who doesn't make friends that easily, that's how they would have to make friends. They'd have to go out, hang out with new people, and then eventually become friends. And like it's a movie that hasn't been done enough. I feel like that concept is really good. A guy that just he needs to make friends. So they might have done it in that movie with Josh Gad and Kevin Hart. I forget what the name of that one is. I think it's The Ringer. I think that makes sense. But no, I Love You Man's fantastic, and that's why it's my number 4. Number 3 is another Jason Segel movie. Okay, another one of my favorites. Came out in 2008 again, in that little window between 2006 and 2010. Tons of movies. Okay, tons of really good comedy movies, and of course this one being Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Okay, this movie is so funny. It's got great Jonah Hill lines. It's got great Jason Segel, an underrated Bill Hader in here. Mila Kunis and Kristen Bell are throwing a million miles an hour. They're both equally funny and equally likable. It's got the best Russell Brand we've ever seen. He's just outrageous in this movie. So great. It's got one of the most underrated Paul Rudd performances we've ever seen as the surfing instructor Kunu. He's like, "Hey, aren't you that guy from Kaiser Permanente?" He's like, "No, but and then Russell Brand's like, "I got some coral stick." He's like, "You sound like you're from London." It's just like, Paul Rudd's got great lines, and then Jonah Hill has that line. He's like, "Did you listen to my demo? Did you get it? Did you get it?" And then Russell Brand's just like, I was going to go listen to your demo, but I just kind of carried on and continued living my life. And then Jonah Hill was like, "All right, I guess I'll go fuck myself," That movie's just it's funny start to end, right? There's probably a couple 5-10 minute scenes here or there where it gets kind of corny, gets kind of campy, but it's an amazing film, and I'm sure that all of you guys have seen it, and it's just it's always a good watch, no matter what time of the year it is, what time of day it is, how you're feeling, you're happy, sad, or indifferent. It's a great watch, and that's why it's my number three. Number two is just fucking funny. Okay, it is a seriously funny movie. I remember when this movie came out. I was in high school. I think I was like, I think I was sophomore year, sophomore year going into junior year, and this movie took kind of everyone by storm. Nobody was expecting it. Nobody knew who this guy Zach Galifianakis was, and of course, I'm talking about The Hangover. Okay, at my high school, there was a period of time where everybody was talking about this movie for a good 2-3 months because it was so funny, and it is. It's ridiculous. Like the premise of it, I couldn't believe it hadn't been done that often before. Basically, you go to Vegas, a lot of stuff happens, and you're trying to recreate it, and that was part of the fun of the movie and why it was so funny. Like it's basically a who done it. It's like a mystery comedy because you're trying to figure out what happened to Doug, and at the same time you're retracing the steps of the night before, and it's just it's phenomenal. Stu winds up marrying a stripper, and they stole a cop car, and they meet Ken Jeong's character, and he's like "Toodaloo, motherfucker." It's so funny, and it's definitely the most iconic cut. You rewatch it now, and unfortunately, a lot of it probably couldn't be made. I mean, Stu says the F word a lot. I'm not talking about fuck. I'm talking about the other one. And they make a lot of gay jokes, which won't go over good today. And and the fact that they use roofies at all. I'm pretty sure you couldn't do this movie. There's no way it could get made today. And I think that's the reason why we haven't had as many good comedies the last 5-10 years is because it's gotten a little bit harder to make comedies without trying to offend anybody. When at the root of it, comedy is playing up the things that we all know are active, but making a joke on it. I'm just hoping at some point we get to, I don't know why I'm being preachy right now, but I hope we get to a point where we can enjoy comedies again and laugh at the shit that we should be able to laugh about. Things are too serious. We should be able to laugh at some things. But anyways, Hangover is my number two, which leads to my number one. And if you know me, you know this is one of the most quotable movies ever. Okay, there's a reason why it hasn't been on my list yet. And you're probably wondering, like, is it going to be on his list? Are you sure? Is it going to be on his list? Is he going to talk about it? Did he forget about it? No, I didn't forget about it. Okay, this movie came out in 2008, so it's again one of those movies that came out at the right time. Directed by Adam McKay, who's gone on to do a lot more serious things now. He did like The Big Short, and he's doing another movie right now. And of course, I'm talking about the movie Step Brothers, starring John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell. And this movie is just so iconic from start to finish. It's absurd. It's got Catherine Hahn in it. It has Adam Scott from Parks and Rec, who's one of my favorite people. It has Richard Jenkins. It has Mary Steenburgen, who's the mom of Will Ferrell's character. It's got Andrea Savage, who's become more prevalent in a TBS sitcom now. It's got a great cast, and it's got what's it, Ron? What's that guy's name? The guy who goes "Pow!" I forget his name, but Step Brothers is iconic. Okay, it's one of the most quotable movies ever. You can go up to somebody and just say a couple of lines like just basically anything you could think of from the movie. I can't think on the spot in that regard, but it's just so funny. It's so ingrained in the culture. Adam Scott is just it's Boats and Hoes, Prestige Worldwide, and the Catalina fucking wine mixer. Like these are things that are ingrained in the culture. Okay, it's just a lot of movies have tried to do this exact same thing, and it's kind of a staple for a lot of comedies. A lot of they're for whatever reason this movie's rated like 55% on Rotten Tomatoes, which means absolutely nothing, and it's fucking dog shit. But this movie's phenomenal. Okay, it's just got some all-time performances. This is kind of where I learned about John C. Reilly, and the first time I saw Adam Scott and Catherine Hahn, like this movie came out when I was 15, right? 15, and it just made me laugh. So it's always on cable. Okay, I watched it. It was on Netflix from time to time. It's on Hulu from time to time. And whenever it's on, it doesn't matter what point of the movie it's on, I'm gonna watch it pretty much all the way through until I have to go somewhere or I have to go do something. But Step Brothers is great, and that's why it's my number one. Will Ferrell, like I said earlier, doesn't always have hits. He's about 50-50. But when he hits, and he's really like the role is designed for him, he fucking hits. He's in it, and it's fucking great. And Step Brothers is no exception. That's why it's number one. But yeah, that's my list, you guys. I want to know what your top 10 comedies are. If there, let me know if I missed any main ones, okay? Because it's possible that I did. There's a lot of comedies out there. These are the ones that kind of resonate with me and stick with me the most. But um, I want to know down below in the YouTube comments, down below in the Instagram comments. You can message me on Instagram. That's at cam.cast, KAM.KAST. And of course on YouTube, comment below. Make sure you're sharing, liking, subscribing. Make sure you check out some of my other videos. I have my Star Wars list that I did about 3-4 weeks ago on Star Wars Day. Actually, be longer, huh? Because we're in fucking the first week of June. But yeah, you guys, sorry that I was kind of late on this list. I had a lot of things going on, but I'm gonna try to do another podcast this weekend because it's a free weekend, and it's just good to be back. Good to be talking about movies, and oh yeah, the Lakers lost, so I'm not doing any basketball videos for a while, which is great because I don't care. I'll probably do another Shohei Otani video at some point because I love Shohei. But and anytime if you guys want me to do another top 10, let me know what top 10s you guys want me to do. These top 10s are fun for me. I love ranking things. I love talking about it and justifying it. And I want to get you guys more involved in some of those conversations with the top 10s. So as always, you guys, thank you for listening. Peace and love. And I guess peace and love, and that's it, huh? Yep. Okay. Thanks.